Namaste, everyone. Today, we'd like to take a look at how your clothing affects your posture. So this is the second video in the fixing your furniture section for people with a posture ranking of 2 to 4. Furniture clothing, actually, yes. From a motion point of view, your clothing absolutely counts as furniture that your body is constantly having to work around. So let's get started. This group is going to find this stuff a little bit harder to take seriously, maybe because your body's not telling you there's anything wrong yet. Believe me, you do not want to get so far stuck that you can actually tell your clothing has caused a problem, because that is way hard to recover. What you want to do, if at all possible, is give this a little bit of common sense thought before you develop a huge problem to begin with, right? So let's stop and think about it a minute. Your shirt, I would actually agree, is never really going to mess with your posture. Nobody's built a shirt that's so heavy they can't stand up, right? It's basically anchored by your shoulders, whether it's form-fitting or loose. It's not really pulling on your back. It's just not an issue, right? What causes all the trouble is our pants and our shoes. And that has a very, very big effect. So the first thing you notice looking at me here is I'm wearing my pants funny, right? Most people, you buy these pants, they're made to wear like this. You can't quite see, can you see my feet? Yes, right? See, they come down to my ankles, and this is a perfectly fitting pair of pants, right? Might look a little dumpy, but this is how they're made to wear, right? Right. Well, this waistband here is actually a huge problem. If you stop to look at it or feel it, if I just wear it like this, as soon as I take a step, this fabric is pulling on my knee. It's pulling my kneecap out of position. And because it's pulling on my knee, I can actually feel it impacting my lower back right here. I can actually feel that. That's probably because I've broken my back a couple of times and I've learned to pay very close attention, but I can feel it, right? So it's pulling. The reason this waist thing is bad is because it is guaranteed to pull wrong on your knees and your back. This is just basic physics. It doesn't matter what kind of material you have, what kind of designer you have. I don't care how well made these custom designed pants are. If they're anchored at the waist, they will have a problem. End of story. So if you fold it down, if you put your waistband at your hips instead of your actual waist here, right? Now I can wiggle around all kinds of wiggling, and it's not pulling on my knees and therefore my back. When I lift my leg now, there is a 70% reduction in how much this fabric is pulling on my knee right now, right? What we think of as normal pants has actually only been around for the last 200 years. We have been anchoring pants we've been wearing pants for a long time. Matter of fact, the oldest pair of pants I think we have a picture of, Google it, it's kind of interesting. Don't quote me on the date. I think it's like 1000 BC. They were absolutely hip pants. They were not belted at the waist. They were clearly hip pants, right? So we have been belting them at the waist longer than 200 years. But before that, there was only 3 kinds of pants you could get. You could get knickers, or what do they call it? Knickers or breeches, right? Which means it stops at the knee. So either you have something that comes a little past with a little bubble at your knee so that it never impacts you bending your knee every single time you take a step, right? Or they wore pantaloons. It was belted up at the waist, but it was like a big balloon that's then belted at your ankles. So it's like that's never getting in your way for motion on your knees, because it's not this is like a bad glove, right? If it was skin tight, if it was spandex, the problems are gone. If it's like a balloon, like a pantaloon, the problems are gone. Both of those work very, very well. But when you have one that's just a little bit loose, you got all kinds of problems every day, all day long as you wear those pants. It's happening. So, what do? Well, start thinking about this, right? Like if you're a kid watching this video, this is definitely a good one to have your parents watch with you, because they're going to help you find clothing, right? And most people don't know this stuff. They've never stopped to think about it. They've been stuck in regular pants, worn the regular way their whole life. They don't even think about it. I mean, it just doesn't even seem to be an option because you don't find them in stores, right? You're going to have to take a little effort to start modifying your clothing. Now, I, for one, do not want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on specially tailored clothing that actually fits properly, right? I'd rather just be able to go to the stores or the thrift stores in my case. I don't even do Target, right? I want to be able to modify whatever I find. And this is a very easy way to modify things. Almost all the pants now, unless it's got a button, you're going to be able to fold it over very, very easily. The elastic has come a long way, so we don't have to worry about pants falling off anymore. It's not really an issue. You can definitely make a huge difference in how your pants fit just by changing the way you anchor it right here. I mean, if you hate how it looks that bad, then take your shirt out and cover it up. It's not really that hard, right? So you get the idea. And one final tidbit, something else to consider is you usually see girls wearing spandex more than boys. I'd say if you're a boy, I would strongly recommend you start reconsidering, okay? It's not really all that weird, and it makes a huge, huge difference. If you are going to wear spandex, however, you're still going to have to fold the waist over. They're still always going to be too tall, even though it's spandex. See, with spandex, you can always pull them up at the knee, so you have a little extra give there, and you can fold them at the waist so that they can actually allow you to move properly without constantly having to hold onto your clothing every time you want to move, right? So something to keep in mind with that spandex, though, is that you need to be able to breathe, too. Stop and think about it. Your skin's your largest organ, right? If you're covering up fully half of your body with something that cannot breathe, it doesn't allow your skin to breathe, now you got a new problem, right? It's not as easy to find clothing that's made out of natural materials, but you want to stick with something that's made out of cotton or hemp. I don't know of anything else that is used in the manufacture of clothing that's actually natural. There is nothing else. There's a lot of fancy labels on those clothing labels, or a lot of fancy names on those clothing labels, but you have to if you learn a little bit about the history of fabric, it's all made out of plastic. And this is a problem. I mean, think about it. What do you wrap your food in so it doesn't spoil? Plastic, because it doesn't let the air in, okay? If you're covering up all your skin with something made out of plastic that hugs your skin pretty tight, if you find plastic pantaloons, polyester pantaloons, most of those fancy names are all forms of plastic. Rayon was actually the first non-natural fabric that was invented, and it was made out of recycled cardboard, which I thought was pretty cool. Everything past that is some version of plastic, you guys. Everything. There are no exceptions. So just stay away from it. Pick something that's made out of natural materials if it's going to be form-fitting. If it's not so form-fitting, then it's not a big deal because your skin can still breathe, right? So that should do it for the pants. I don't own anything that isn't spandex or sweatpants. I don't even own it. Oh, yes, one last tidbit I almost forgot. There's still quite a few people out there who are in love with blue jeans, right? I come from a big farming family, so that was very popular. It's a thicker material. It's better out in the cold. It doesn't rip so easy. It's tough. It's durable. Yeah, all that's true. Also really, really, really bad. I cannot think of any kind of clothing that's harder on your knees and your posture than blue jeans. A lot of kids know this already. A lot of kids know that they're just never comfortable when they're wearing blue jeans, Listen to your body. It's hollering for a reason. Again, have your parents watch this video with you. It's very important to pick clothing that allows you to move. So, if you thought the pants was important, the shoes is even more important. I'd say if you're wearing pants, for example, you're not actually running around all of the time, right? Half of the time you're sitting in a chair or you're standing around, you're not actually moving. And whenever you're not actually moving, it's not technically impacting your posture, right? This is a different story. If you're wearing these, it's affecting you every second, every single second. It just is. It doesn't matter what you are doing, even if you're sitting in a chair, your shoes are absolutely affecting your posture. So, what do you do? Again, this is something we need to talk about a little bit because the problem is so bad, nobody would ever believe it. It's really, really, really extreme. It's just like, in the last videos we were talking about how all the chairs are built into the letter C to support people's slouch. It's like our posture's gotten worse and worse and worse, and our chairs have changed right along with us to support more and more and more of a slouch. Well, the same thing has happened with our shoes. Absolutely has happened with our shoes. This is a big deal, you guys. At this point, if you go into the athletic department at any box store and look for athletic shoes so that it pays attention to proper posture and you don't have these problems, you will not find anything without a heel. You won't even find it in the athletic section. It is that bad. I mean, everybody knows, everybody's probably got a pair of flip-flops lying around, or at least you know what they are, right? I mean, everybody throws them on in summertime. You just want to get around. You don't want to step in something icky, but you don't want to have to mess with big, heavy shoes and your feet get hot and all this stuff, right? Nowadays, even the flip-flops have heels most of the time. How insane is this, right? Well, it's not really insane. It's just accommodating our posture. See, unfortunately, there's a huge section of the population that their posture has gotten so bad that they now have to use a heel or they are in pain. Just like the pillow when you go to sleep at night. If you're stuck, if you're always slouching and you're stuck in the splits, you got to shove that pillow under your head, otherwise you can't sleep because it hurts, right? The same thing is happening with shoes. So, if you're a kid watching this, you're definitely going to need grown-up help on fixing your shoes because this is the only solution. These are my favorite summer sandals. They don't fall off. Very nice. Take a look at what I did to the heel. You notice it's been cut off, right? Even this little sandal, almost everything you find, and this is something to pay very, very close attention to because something I've noticed most of the companies who manufacture shoes are doing now is they will actually paint the outside of the shoe so that it looks like it does not have a heel. But if you actually use your fingers to try to determine how thick the sole is at the front and back of the shoe, it's absolutely got a heel. This has gotten so bad that they're actually lying to you on purpose to make it look like it doesn't have a heel when it does. Okay, this is a big deal. This is difficult to tell just by feeling. It's really, really hard. And if you're used to shoes that are always messed up, right, you're not going to be able to feel the difference. So be very, very careful. And once you do figure out what needs to be fixed, you can absolutely use a good knife to cut the heel off. It will take a little bit of time. It generally takes me about a half an hour to doctor a pair of shoes because you don't want it all lumpy and uneven. It does not need to be perfect, okay? If it's a little bit lower on this side than it is on this side, a chiropractor is going to get a little itchy here. It's like, oh, you don't want unevenness from side to side or it's going to start throwing you off in new directions, right? Just like you're being thrown off in this direction with a heel. If you get, and that's true. So if you're going to try to focus on making sure it's exactly the same anywhere, side to side is way more important. Well, it's not more important, but it's as important. You do want it basically level, okay? If you have to pull out a ruler and keep coming back and taking off a tiny sliver more, then do that because it is important to get it right. Most of the time, you're not walking around outside like this, right? You're in a building. It's always on a flat floor. It's very rigid surfaces. So if you're always walking on regular civilized floors and your shoe is warped, whether it's warped this way with a heel or this way because you cut it funny, it's warped and it's going to cause trouble, right? So this is what I recommend is take off the heels. At this point, it's almost impossible to buy shoes that don't have a heel. So just give up. Just find something good. This one, for those of you that are a little older, kids, you're not going to have to worry about this one so much. But in the working adult world, this gets to be a huge issue because almost any job you have is going to have OSHA standards that require a certain kind of shoe for your work environment, right? There's no such thing as a shoe that will accommodate OSHA that is not badly designed. They have not made one, and believe me, I have looked. This is what I recommend. This one actually will fly by OSHA standards for a closed-toe shoe. That's the usual regulation that most people are going to trip over is, they don't want stuff falling on your feet and hurting your toes. So it's always got to be closed shoe, closed shoe, closed shoe, right? Well, if you're working 40 hours a week, first of all, this is creating foot fungus problems, which you might already know, right? So ventilation becomes a huge issue, but it's also seriously affecting your posture because all those safety shoes have that bloody heel. So again, I spent $50 on a pair of, actually it might even been 60. This is an expensive pair of shoes that I butchered here. But as you can see, this works kind of like a sandal. It's got all kinds of ventilation all around the shoe, but this is a very rigid plastic. The toe is highly well protected. Since the toe goes, make sure it's wide for your toes too. I didn't mention that toes in shoes is a big deal for posture as well. If you look at young children, you will find that they often put their shoes on the wrong feet. And most parents just assume that that's because they haven't learned which is which and they can't feel the difference of which is more comfortable. And they are wrong. They are totally wrong. Kids are very good at paying attention to which is more comfortable. And it is absolutely more comfortable to wear your shoes backwards because then it gives your pinky toes more space to move, which is absolutely necessary for proper motion. I understand we put more space over here because that toe is bigger, but this is a big deal, okay? And in cultures like China, they have practices like foot binding that have been around for a couple thousand years now, where they literally were out to maim women's feet and make it so that they could not walk and escape their husbands. This was actually a source of pride. I know it sounds crazy, but it's real, you guys. And just because this happened in China doesn't mean that our culture's not doing very similar things. They might not advertise it as loudly as the Chinese do, but this is absolutely deliberate, and it restricts mobility to an unbelievable degree. Okay, you will never find a healthy person. Let me see if I can put my foot up a little so you can see it a little better. A healthy foot has an arch. The middle of your foot should not come down to touch the bottom, right? And if you look at those toes, I've got quite a reach, don't I? Okay, that is not going to happen if you wear regular shoes your whole life. It will not happen. You will have a foot where your toes can't really move, and they just get used to that shoe shape, the way we've built it. So, if you're one of the grown-ups, let your kids wear their shoes backwards. Absolutely. It's a good thing. Doesn't matter if it looks funny. It's kind of like doing this to your pants, right? It helps. It makes a big difference. So that's about it. You can absolutely modify any kind of shoe. Just cut that heel off. Try to find a shoe where you can identify what the heel actually is. There have been many times that I was in a store and I did not buy a shoe simply because I could not tell how tall the heel was. It was not possible to tell visually. And if you can't tell visually, then you're probably going to screw it up, right? So I think that's about it. We want to get rid of the heels. We want to get rid of the knee pull, and give some thought to allowing proper space for your toes. Give it, get wider shoes instead of narrower shoes. The other video, you might, if you're in the middle ground, you might actually want to watch both the PR 2 to 4 and the PR 5 to 9 when it comes to shoes, because this is a really big deal. And there's a lot of information that I haven't covered in this video because this is the one for people that don't even know that this is a problem, right? So that's about it. That's the simple fix that's inexpensive that is going to have a whopping effect on your posture because it's affecting you every day, almost all day long. Namaste. Oh, I almost forgot. If you're doing this course for credit, fix a pair of shoes and send me a picture. Take care.